Hello everyone! Today I am doing my full coverage foundation routine, and I'm not going to talk through the whole video. I'm actually going to stop talking in a minute and do a voiceover for while I'm actually applying my products, but I wanted to quickly say a couple of things before I get started. So first of all, I wanted to say that the products that I'm using in this video are my basically holy grail. I don't really like to use that word because I think that it's overused. These are the products that I know always work for me, that I reach for the most, that I just absolutely love and would highly recommend to anybody. And I would say this routine is something that I do about 85% of the time when I'm doing my foundation. So the reason I wanted to film this video as a separate video is so that I don't have to go through my foundation, concealer, and everything like that in every tutorial that I do, just to save time, and because if you guys have seen it once, you've seen it. Like, you don't need to see it every single time I do a tutorial. So I wanted to film this separate video, and then as I do my tutorials, unless I do something really crazy different with my face makeup, you can just assume that this is what I'm doing. So another reason I wanted to film this video today is because my skin is pretty bad today, and I wanted to show you how I cover it up when it's extra bad. So as you can see, like, I have a lot of, I have to turn a little bit more so you can see, but I have a lot of breakouts in this area, and I don't know why. It's just been like it started up here like a few months ago, and now it's just traveled, and it's down on my neck and a little bit on this side too. It's pretty bad for me right now, especially in this area, and I wanted to show you how I cover it up when it's pretty bad. So the number one thing before I get into the foundation is, if you want to have flawless looking skin, make sure you have a good skincare routine. Make sure your skin is cleansed and hydrated before you start anything. You don't want to be putting makeup over dirty skin, and you don't want to be putting makeup on dry skin. So my skincare routine, I haven't filmed that video yet, but I'm intending on filming it very soon. So if it's up when you're watching this, it'll be linked below, so check below. Otherwise, it'll be up very soon. So now I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to get into my full coverage flawless foundation routine. So I'm going to be using two primers, and I'll explain why as I go, but the first one is the Benefit Porefessional. And the purpose of this primer is to fill my pores. So I'm putting it on my fingertips and I'm just pressing it into the areas of my face where my pores are the largest. For me, those areas are my cheeks and my forehead. For you, it might be different. Wherever your pores are the largest, just put the pore filling primer on those areas. And like I said, I'm pushing it into my skin with my fingertips. I'm careful not to rub too much because I really want to just sort of get it pushed into those pores and not smeared around too much. The next primer I'm using is my Arbonne makeup primer. This is a clear gel formula, and I'm putting that basically on the rest of the areas of my face that I didn't put the Benefit primer. Now, this primer does fill pores, and it is really nice. It doesn't quite have the same effect as the Benefit primer. I think it might be partly because the Benefit one has a tint to it, and it just is a little bit more blurring of the pores. But the Arbonne primer is really, really an amazing product, and a lot of times I'll just use that one. But I wanted to show you what I do if I really want a flawless finish and I really want those pores to be gone. One thing I try to do is put this primer on areas of my face that tend to get dry. So like under my eyes, you saw me put it on above my eyes as well, in the corners, anywhere that tends to crease or crack sort of, or just get dry. I want to make sure I have a good layer of primer on that area. And this primer also works on eyes and lips as well. Next, I'm using my Maybelline Age Rewind Dark Spot Correcting Concealer, and you can see that I took the sponge off so I could access the product better. This product is kind of the star of the show. This is what really covers up those blemishes and the discoloration. And quite honestly, if I'm having a good skin day and I don't have a lot of breakouts, I will skip this step. But since I am not having a good skin day on this day, I am using this concealer, and it really just covers everything up completely. And I'm blending it out with an e.l.f. concealer brush. And I forgot to mention before, I was sort of painting it on my face with a flat concealer brush, and this is more of a dome-shaped concealer brush that I'm using to blend it out. And you can see I'm using my finger to apply this to my face. Sometimes I will use a brush, sometimes I'll use my finger. It really depends on my mood. I feel like it's pretty much the same either way. Just make sure your hands are completely clean if you do use your hands to apply products to your face. And you also want to make sure that if you are bringing the concealer and foundation down to your neck like I am, particularly because I have the breakouts there, but also just to make sure the colors blend really well, you want to make sure you get all areas of your neck, not just where the breakouts are. I'm not an expert on this yet, but I do know that if you don't put concealer on one area and you put it on another, it's going to stand out. Now I'm using the Arbonne liquid foundation. I have a few different shades that I rotate through depending on my skin color and, you know, the amount of tan I have and stuff. I don't actually know which shade I used for this, but I'll list it in the description box. Then I'm buffing that out with the Real Techniques buffing brush. And I just start with a really thin layer of foundation because this stuff is buildable and I don't want to get too much because then it will look like I have too much on and I don't like that look. So I am just buffing it over everything, over the primer and concealer, and just covering up everything with this foundation. This foundation is medium to full coverage, so if you do a thin layer, it can be medium coverage. If you build it on itself, it can be full coverage, but it's not going to be the level that could like cover a tattoo or anything like that, but it does cover any slight imperfections and redness, pores, anything like that. It really does cover well, and I like it because it's breathable, it doesn't feel cakey or heavy, and it also has an SPF in it as well. So I'm buffing that out and just kind of blending out the dots, and then I'm going to go over it again with my beauty blender. I just got the beauty blender wet in with water from the sink, and I'm just blending everything out again with the beauty blender. So after I buffed it out with the brush, I am just going to smooth it out again with the beauty blender. So far, I have found that using the beauty blender this way to kind of push product into my skin after it's been buffed into my skin works the best, rather than trying to spread it out with the beauty blender, because I feel like this way the beauty blender absorbs less product than it does if it's like dots of product on my face that I'm trying to blend out with the beauty blender. I feel like I lose a lot more product in my beauty blender that way, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Then I'm going to add a little more foundation to my forehead area and my nose. And as I do my forehead, you'll see that I use 3 fairly thin dots of foundation, and then I will blend that out with my beauty blender, and then I'll go back in with my beauty blender with no additional product on it, and I will basically just blend out my forehead area again. And the reason I do that is because my forehead area is the part of my face that tends to get the most wrinkles, and because of that, that is where product tends to bunch up. So you can see me going in again with no additional product on it and just smoothing out it, making sure the layer is really thin and, you know, consistent, but very thin, because otherwise it tends to look cakey. Now I'm going in with my Maybelline FitMe concealer, another Maybelline concealer. And this is in the shade medium, and I'm using that to highlight and conceal under my eyes. So any dark circles, puffiness, this gets rid of that, and it also highlights that area, kind of a double duty product. So I just start at the inner corner of my eye and paint my way outwards along my lower lash line, and then I will drag that product down in the shape that you see me doing. I don't know how to describe that shape. And now I'm going in with my beauty blender, the pointy end of my beauty blender, and I am blending that out. And the best way to apply under eye concealer really depends on your face shape. My face shape is round, so I try to make it a little less round, and I try to highlight the cheekbone areas because I don't feel like my cheekbones are very prominent without it. But it really depends on your face shape. So definitely practice and decide what you like, and that's a good way to just decide what looks good on you. Also, you can see at the very inner corner of my eyes, I will blend that product out with my finger just because I don't want to poke myself in the eye with my beauty blender. Random fact, this beauty blender used to be bright red when I got it, and now it is not, which is odd, and it does bleed
red. Every time I wash it, it still bleeds red. So that's that. Now taking the Lorac Pro Contour Kit, I'm using the yellow highlight shade to set my concealer. So I dip my brush in the powder one time, and then I use that one time to cover my complete under eye. You'll see me tapping the brush to my face a lot, but I'm not actually picking up a lot more product because that's another way to avoid it looking cakey, because under eyes is another area that tends to crease frequently, and if you have too much product piled up there, it will look cakey. Now taking the FitMe concealer again, and I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting on my nose and my forehead. These are just the areas that I have found look better when they have a little bit of extra highlight on them. And I'm just blending that out with the pointy end of my beauty blender again. I do want to say that this way of highlighting my forehead, nose, and chin is very particular to my face shape. This is just what I have found to make my face look better, in my opinion. For example, my nose is very flat to my face, and I find that highlighting it right down the center makes it look more prominent. But if you already have a prominent nose, you might not want to do that. And then I'm just setting all of those areas with the same yellow highlight powder from that Lorac Pro contour palette. I'm just dusting that very lightly over everything. Now I'm going in with my Too Faced Primed and Poreless Pressed Powder. This is a translucent setting powder, and I'm using a flat powder brush. This one's by e.l.f. And I'm just very lightly placing that powder over my entire face. So over everything that we've done, just put the powder. It really sets everything. It pulls everything together. It gives an extra sort of blurred, flawless look to everything. It's a really beautiful powder. It's super finely milled, and it's just definitely one of my favorite things. And if you put any product on your neck, don't forget to set your neck. That sounds funny, but you know what I mean. Now I'm going in with a light contour shade and dusting that on with an angled fluffy brush. This is by Arbonne. You guys have seen me contour in other videos, and I do it differently every time, but this is what I do if I want just a really light, it's almost not even a contour, it's more of just a bronzing up the hollows of my cheeks, because I'm not using like a flat brush or anything like that. So it's really just the very basics of what I will do for contouring when I don't want to do anything too intense. So I just put that on the hollows of my cheeks to enhance that, and I'm putting it on my forehead, just the outer areas of my forehead, to bronze it up and create a little bit more dimension, because sometimes adding foundation can make the face look kind of flat, so it's nice to add a little bit of contour and highlight just to bring back that dimension. Alright guys, at this point I will set my face with a setting spray. This is the Arbonne Decay Deslick setting spray. And I like to set my face after my foundation, before I do blush or eyes or lips or anything like that, just to make sure all of that hard work is set in place and not going to go anywhere. Okay guys, that is it for my foundation routine. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you think somebody else might enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And I will talk to you guys again very soon. Thank you so much. Bye.